everybody. Max Scoville here for IGN. We are live at E3. I'm joined by video game industry veteran Ted Price of Insomniac Games. Ted, you're here to talk about something very special, and you guys have been working on a virtual reality game for the Oculus Rift.
We have. It's called Edge of Nowhere.
Let's roll the trailer, and you can tell us a little bit about it. Now, this is something very specifically interesting about this. This is the first third-person VR game we've really seen kind of publicly.
Possibly. I'm not sure.
I mean,
I'm sure there have been other third-person VR games, but for us, it was a conscious decision to go third-person for a number of reasons. First, we have an expertise in third-person. We love third-person games, even though we've done first-person games as well. But we wanted to try something different, and we believe that in third-person, we could actually connect you to the character better.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. I know you hear this a lot, but it's really hard to describe that connection until you're in the game and you're, becoming your character.
Sure. I mean, I think that there's also how you describe it. When we say third person, that's basically anything with a camera. Like there's really no way. There's a first person view is kind of like looking through someone else's eyes. This is like being the cameraman controlling the situation, and
right.
that is conceptually a very tough sell for VR.
Well, what's very different though about VR in general is that you are the camera. Your head, wherever your head moves.
You're getting a little bit close to like Kinect messaging there, but like yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But no more right stick to move the camera, at least in Edge of Nowhere. So wherever you look.
Actually, at this point, I had this weird kind of like knee-jerk reaction to be like, that feels like I don't have a hand. Like that feels like trying to play a game with one hand. But what's like? So this looks like a video game. If you didn't tell me this is a VR game, I wouldn't have any way of being able to tell that. What's going on here?
Well, right now you have started out on top of this barren, windswept Antarctic glacier, and in the demo you hear a message from somebody. You find out more about her later, and she's imploring you to move on. Here you've actually been exploring through some of the caves in Antarctica, and you end up inadvertently triggering some bad stuff.
This is this is pretty terrifying. This is getting very, very dark.
Well, when you're in VR, right, it really does feel like you're there, and with the 3D sound and being able to look around and see threats on all sides, it actually does. It's a lot more gripping than our more traditional approach, where it's you and a screen way out here. So one of the things that's great about VR, though, too, is that when you are in a game where you can explore, exploring really becomes much more you. I mean, for example, in our game, when you start, you actually get a really great close-up of the character. You can look around him as he's looking back at you, kind of establishing this connection. You can look up and you see this boat on this old boat on this glacier, and you wonder what's going on there. As you're exploring this small segment that we show off in the demo, you can see all sorts of crazy things as you're just looking around, and that's one of the really cool aspects of having a headset on.
So if you were to turn your head like just completely around, what would you see? Would that rotate the camera around the character?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look behind you, you see where you have just come from, or you see the gibbering beast that's chasing you, about to rip you from head to toe.
I don't know how I feel about that. That's kind of nuts. So like we've got that. I've always hated this view in games, but when the camera is when you're looking directly at your character and they're running away from something, you can kind of make that your own. Like you could flip your head around if, let's say, something's chasing you.
Yeah. You can be moving forward, and you can move your head back and see what's to your side, what's behind you, what's above you, and that's actually an important part of gameplay too.
Okay.
Looking down, looking up, there are threats everywhere, or they're interesting.
Do you find
that
disorients people at all?
Well, because you're in control of the camera, completely in control of the camera, there isn't that disconnect between your inner ear and what's actually going on screen. We let you control the camera. That's up to you.
Huh.
With the headset. If we didn't, then disorientation would set in, and it'd be a little uncomfortable.
What are some of the challenges of working in VR? I mean, you've worked in a lot of different games, so.
We had to learn a lot very quickly about what VR is, and we did a lot of experiments early on with the camera in particular. We actually had a bunch of just test levels where we had characters running around, and we had to spend a lot of time figuring out what happens when you turn a corner. When you have a character who's just running straight and then he takes a right turn, do you, like most third-person games, move the camera gently to get back behind the character? Well, it turns out at least what we discovered, is it turns out that if you do that, you make people very sick. So we now craft our levels to ensure that we don't have any of those situations where we have to just rejigger things and all of a sudden your brain is telling you one thing, but your eyes are telling you, another, or the game's telling you another.
What's it like working with Oculus? Have they been really supportive with this? And
yeah, super supportive. I mean, I believe Oculus is fully invested in taking VR as into new places, not just with games, but with everything else that they're doing. And what I love, though, about working with them is there are a lot of folks who are industry veterans who are on the Oculus team. So we share ideas all the time about experiments that we're doing with gameplay. They also focus test the heck out of everything we do, and I'm sure other teams do, just to make sure that we all understand what will work and what won't work. Because games in VR, in terms of the design, is a very different beast than non-VR.
Wow. Well, Ted, thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
Yeah, my pleasure.
This is definitely an exciting time. I love talking about VR, and we're going to take a quick break and come right back and talk more about VR and take a look at Lucky's Tale, which is a slightly less terrifying, also third-person VR game. Don't go anywhere.